Hello, my name is John from Monostory, and today we're going to be talking about Shanks, friend or enemy. So let's get into it and find out what it's all about.
これ以上欲しても両軍被害は無益に拡大する一方だ。まだ暴れ足りない奴がいるのなら来い、俺たちが相手をしてやる。
Now, the first thing we need to do before we discuss about Shanks' plans or goals is we need to understand where Shanks comes from. So we need to start with God Valley, where he was born. However, during the God Valley incident, he was saved by Dragon, and furthermore, Gold D. Roger, where he was found in a treasure chest and mistook for actual treasure. He then grew up on Gold D. Roger's ship, where he met Buggy, and he and Buggy, with all of the other Gold D. Roger pirates, sailed across the seas, finding the One Piece, in which he was nearly successful at seeing until he had to take care of Buggy. However, he did have one conversation with Roger after they had come back from finding the One Piece. After this, we know that Gold D. Roger handed himself in to the Marines and world government, where he was essentially deleted. And after this time, Shanks and Buggy got into a fight in which they separated. After this, we can now presume that Shanks joined the Holy Knights and became one of these Holy Knights, as we'd seen him with a scar on his face, meaning that anything before the scar happened before he had joined the Holy Knight. We then later on see him speaking with Scopper Caban at Albath, in which we see Harold being defeated by Loki. And so at this point we can assume that this is where Shanks will defeat Loki and put him in the shackles that we have now seen him in the current Albath arc. After this, he then goes and gets the Nika Nika fruit, which at that time was the Gomu Gomu fruit, from Who's Who. And I'm just going to be honest, why did Imu give the fruit to Who's Who? I have no idea. I'm still trying to, for this many years, understand what logic there was. I mean, I won't talk about it today because it's about Shanks, but let's be real here. Who in 800 years would give the fruit to someone who can only transform into a cat instead of one of your admirals or one of the Holy Knights? There's so many different options Imu could have gone with. What does he choose? The one person who couldn't even stop anybody. And now he has to deal with Gear 5 Sun God Nika Luffy, where if he'd just given it to somebody else, he wouldn't be in this problem. But regardless, at that point, Shanks does take the fruit from Who's Who. He then goes to Luffy's island and he meets Luffy for the first time, in which Luffy does eat the fruit, and he then falls into the water at some point after being captured by the bandits, and he is then unable to obviously swim, so Shanks saves him, in the process losing his arm. And we believe that is because he wanted to remove the seal that Imu had given him, which is used by the Holy Knights in order to regenerate or regain their body once it has been cut or destroyed. And then we get into what is our current story with Luffy. So he meets up at some point with Mihawk, where Mihawk explains what happened to Luffy. He then goes to meet with Whitebeard and talk about how Ace shouldn't be chasing after Blackbeard. He then goes to Marineford after Whitebeard and Ace's deletion and takes them and gives them a proper burial. He then helps out at Wano when Aramaki, or Admiral Greenbull, shows up and he stops him from going further into Wano. And then we get him at the end of our point where we see him at Albath stopping Kid from attacking Albath, and we hear him say one of the most important lines of the story so far, and that is, he is going for the One Piece. And that is the history of Shanks. So now that we know what Shanks' history was, we need to understand what is the issue with Shanks and why there are problems in which he has created. So the first big issue we have is that he has stolen the Nika Nika fruit despite being a Holy Knight, which means that he has now betrayed Imu, and he's even further betrayed him by losing that seal by literally taking his arm. And in every opportunity he can, he is not meeting up with Luffy at any point. So in Marineford, he could have met up with Luffy and Ace and probably helped them. Instead, he waited till everything was settled and then he came. and stopped everything. And same thing at Wano, he could have met up with Luffy there again, but he did help. However, he didn't meet with him, and he did state in a few moments where he cannot meet with him yet. So there must be something happening that Shanks cannot tell us that has implications or relevance to Luffy that he is unable to tell us until he gets to that point where he is able to explain to us what the problem is and his potential solution. Through this information, we now even have a bigger problem, and that is Shanks becoming a Holy Knight. What is the benefit to becoming a Holy Knight? Why would he want to do that? And it's very, very simple. He needs information because he wants revenge for what happened to Roger, but he can't do anything right now because he's not in that position to defeat someone who's 800 years worth of experience and has abilities that can literally transform people beyond our wildest imagination, can pretty much do whatever he feels like. I mean, he stopped Rox Diesebek, we're talking Imu here, and he lost Gold D. Roger to the Marines and the world government, and the world government have done more bad things to him. I mean, if he looks at it logically, his own mother was deleted by the world government. Look, let's be real here. She was deleted by his own father. That's just crazy. So we had to know how he was able to defeat Imu, and the only way he could think of is if he'd been to Elbaf, which he was, he would have seen the mural, and he would have seen that the sun god Nika is the one and only person who could beat Imu, and he would have read or known about Joy Boy, and so that would have changed his thoughts on what he would need to do. So he'd need to think, I need to get the Nika Nika fruit, we need to protect that fruit, let's call it a different name, it's now the Gomu Gomu fruit, or the rubber rubber fruit. He also chose to protect Luffy after he even ate the fruit because he didn't want Luffy to suffer the same way he did, being alone and having no family. Essentially, he did have a family with the Roger Pirates, but that wasn't his mother or father at that point. He saw the opportunity to go against Imu, and he needed to make everything right. So he needed to lose the seal. He needed to make sure Luffy was able to be kept a secret. And he then went on his journey, and he waited and waited till now, where Luffy is the sun god Nika. So he now needs to go get the One Piece, whatever that is, and he needs to either give it to Luffy or he needs to use it himself to help Luffy. Now, in regards to the future, what does Shanks want to do? And it's very simple. He's going to get the One Piece, he's going to meet up with Luffy, and he's going to help Luffy get to Merijois and then fight the Holy Knights. And we need to see all of the Holy Knights be defeated, and the only way we can see that is if Scopper tells Luffy and all the other Straw Hats how you can damage or defeat Holy Knights. And I think that might have to do something with Brook and his past with Gunko, but at this moment I'm not too sure. That could just be a theory. But regardless, we need to see Shanks get to Luffy at some point. And I finally think that when fighting Imu, there might need to be a sacrifice in order to use the One Piece, whatever that is. Because it can't be gold, because if it was gold, then we would have seen Goldie Roger and Scopper, Rayleigh, all of them carrying wads of gold with them. So much that they couldn't move at that point. So it must be something more informative or technology based. And so if it is technology based, it might need to use a sacrifice in order to be used. So Shanks will sacrifice himself in order for Luffy to gain this power that will defeat Imu. And I think that's one of the best ways that the One Piece will be used. A sacrificial ability that creates a large mass power that Imu, with all of his abilities, he cannot stop. However, if it was technology based, why is Imu not going for it now? Why is he not worried about it? So the only definition I can give of it is that it is a informative item that tells us information about whether it be Imu or something around that line of what happened during Joy Boy's life. And in order for Luffy to gain more power, Shanks will have to do something that will give that power to Luffy, giving up his own life. そろそろ取りに行こうか。One Piece. And that is my thoughts on Shanks being a friend or an enemy. And I think Shanks still has a lot left to do. There is still more things he needs to do before we get to Merijois and actually defeating the Holy Knights or Imu at this point. He is going to be a major player in the final war between the Holy Knights and Imu with the Straw Hats. And one of the beautiful things I'd like to see is him meeting with Dragon, because Dragon might have some idea of what he looks like as a child, so he'd have to remember him as an adult to some degree, and it would be very nostalgic feeling where this person that saved you at God Valley met up with you again. It would be a very nostalgic, interesting interaction, and he might even help the Revolutionary Army defeat Imu as well, or assist in defeating Imu. And furthermore, bringing peace to the world of One Piece. And obviously, the most important and best interaction we're going to get from this will be Shanks one more time meeting up with Luffy, and Luffy handing back the straw hat. And we might even get a remark about how Joy Boy once had the straw hat, and that sort of past actions coming to the present, and how Joy Boy couldn't stop Imu, but Luffy could. And that would be one of the best endings, I think, to One Piece. But I want to hear what you think about Shanks being a friend or an enemy. Is he a friend to Luffy, or is he an enemy? And why do you think this? So please write that down in the comment section below. My name is John from Mono Story. If you haven't already liked, subscribed and pressed the bell button, please do so. And until next time, if you want to keep on watching, please click a video up above. If not, I will see you on another Mono Story.